there's no rules in this bitch, okay? So we're gonna talk about whatever we want, because we're gonna spin it and let y'all know what we're gonna talk about for 15 minutes. We're gonna give you rapid fire stuff. They're the coaches. I'm the everyday guy. I'm gonna challenge them because who the fuck are they to tell me what to do? They don't know me. They do know me. They've known me for a really long time, but that's not the point. The point is we're here to give you guys a fun podcast, and hopefully you learn some shit along the way.
That's what I kind of like understanding the story was like, oh, he's apologizing for the expectations that he places on himself, which then makes it confusing because I was like, oh, is he dealing with the stereotype or biases of like being an angry black man?
It's a stereotype that Rances has of himself.
But I was like, yo, fuck that, man. Like, being an angry black man is cool. Like, I want to be an angry black man. I'm dead serious. Like, when I was younger, because my father always told me, he was like, you know, you got to play with the brothers, like, to be good at basketball. Like, you're not going to get good playing with white boys. He's like, in these little chinitos, you're not going to get good playing with them either. And I was like, so you can play with black guys. Yeah. And I've always wanted to be, like, when I was younger, I was like, I wanted to be black.
But I could always, but like in your instance, right? It must be wild to be a minority and nobody believes you. Like, no, that's a wild, like, dual concept to have to deal with. Because I mean, there's
a terminology for that, no? Isn't you're the one that told me that?
Yeah.
Like a white person that's not white.
Yeah, white passing.
White passing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like to me, when I heard your story, I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. I was like, so what is he apologizing for? But that makes a lot more sense. It's like these expectations of like, oh, I'm this person and I have these skills, and the only one at this table with these skills, maybe Paola, right? It can be in your mind, in your world, with these skills to be able to approach a difficult situation with curiosity and not anger. That makes sense, a lot of sense to me.
Dead silence. All right. No response. He's computing. He's
recalibrated.
Because I like what you said about Mo and the whole white passing thing. I've been thinking on that route of like you were saying before, like you wanted to be black growing up, right? And then
you are black. I hate to break it to you. You're just albino.
It's just white passing. But like, because that's like also a change of like you trying. To me, that represents you trying to find your identity of where do I fit in, you know. So and then like Jay said, when you are a minority, but no one believes you. Because it reminds me of that time we went to that thing. Where was it?
The workshop in New York. There's like a Google for Coaches workshop, but it was for African, like American. Like it was like minorities.
Oh, so when they saw you, they were like,
I was the only white person in the room.
The speaker spoke about I mean, like we're all whatever. They said something to you about specifically like
about being white.
Like we got one white guy supporting or whatever, and he was like, I'm Puerto Rican. And they're like, oh, really? So like to me that identity crisis, if you will, like I'm curious to learn about that.
Well, I mean, it started from when I was young, like playing basketball. I remember like 11 or 12 years old. Like I was pretty good at that age because my dad was always training me. So my dad put me in a tournament in Hackensack. And I was the last kid to be picked because I was the only white kid in that group. They picked a black girl over me, which is not to say that she wasn't good. She was really good. She was one of the last ones. It was me and her. And she was a really good player. And I was the MVP of the entire tournament at the end. But I was chosen because I was white. And my dad was like, told me when I was 11, 12 years old, he's like, you got picked because you were last because you were white in a room full of African-American kids. Mm-hmm. So that was a difficult experience. And then when I would go play AAU in the Bronx and like all of my experience of like identity with skin color came from playing basketball. And that was a big thing. But then as I started to go into a workforce, like it started to change because me being white actually got me more opportunities than the African American counterparts, which then made me realize I was like, oh shit. Like, it's not as like a hard line like you see. It's really gray.
It must be like interesting, like as a minority, to experience like white guilt.
I do.
You know what I mean? Like, because it's like, I'm sorry, I'm fucking light skinned, bro. Like, I didn't, like, you have no choice over it. You know?
Yeah, like so. I mean, a lot of the work that we do are with African Americans. A lot of my work is that. So sometimes I feel self-conscious when I go into a room full of brown people, and I'm automatically trying to fight off the perceptions that I believe are being had about me, which is like, here's this white man in a room with all African Americans. Like it happened to me with one of our accounts, City Sports, where we had a meeting and they were talking to this organization, and it's all African American men, and I'm the only white man, and I felt self-conscious of like, yo, like I don't want to be looked at as the one that makes decisions. 2, I don't want to be looked at as the one that has power in this situation, because they had brought one of the guys had brought me in for like consultant, just to kind of give the ideas of like how to run numbers and all these things. And here they are, and I'm the only white man in that room, and that made me feel really self-conscious. And like sometimes I think it impacts my behavior and my approach to coaching and consulting and all of those things. So it is a difficult line when I go there. And then in a white room, it's the same thing, because I don't feel white either.
Yeah.
So when in a room with actual white people, I also feel self-conscious, because I'm like, I don't feel as equal like either, because I'm like, they know that my name is Moises Santos and that I'm not white. So it is interesting.
So in the room full of black men, are you like, guys, I'm Puerto Rican, I just want to put it out there. Like, is that like...
No, I'm not like expressing that. I mean, I actually don't know the perception that I put out, to be honest. But I think that I'm self-conscious of not making them feel that I'm not a part of them. Like, I want to make them feel that I am a part of them. So my behavior is to make me feel accepted into the group, and that I understand what they may possibly be going through, right? And the conversations and what they're trying to achieve in their mission. So I'm trying to empathize as much as possible and express that empathy from my perspective. But sometimes I feel that it's not necessarily accepted because I'm a white man.
Mm-hmm. Is that where you? Because I'm thinking back, and I kind of remember you always bringing up, yeah, I grew up in Teaneck.
Yeah, that was something I was actually proud of, because it made me more of a minority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know for me, it was always weird because, like, the brown kid with tattoos, and then I don't speak a word of Spanish, and I love rock music.
Yeah, you've been having identity issues.
Oh, I've been having identity issues since I was fucking born. So it was one of those things. I was like, once like a Spanish mom was like, "Oh, he doesn't speak Spanish. You're not really Spanish." And then if I go around white kids, I don't look like them, so I automatically get treated like, "Oh, you're Spanish." And I was like, "Tell that to them." I'm like, "Can you let them know, because they don't trust, they don't believe that I'm." And it was just one of those things that I'll never forget it. Hector labeled me this, and I love it to this day. He always called me a graham cracker. And I always thought at first, like, that's so fucked up. And I was like, but I'm just me at the end of the day. I grew up with two very strong Puerto Rican parents, and my dad liked Harley Davidsons and rock music, and that's what I grew up on. He loved salsa music. He loved everything else, but like, what really spoke to me was rock music as a kid. I just liked it. I don't know what it was that I just gravitated towards it. And it was always hard for me, because even like being like the younger one of all my cousins, like, "Oh, white boy, you white boy, you white boy." Oh, where you're wearing a tight t-shirt, like, oh, you fucking white boy. So like I remember being younger and like overcompensating and wearing like baggy ass South Pole jeans, and I was like, there's not a hood bone in me. I'm fucking singing "Sink in the House." Like, you know, I'm here playing with my action figures at like 14 years old. So like, leave me alone.
So it's interesting that you said that, because like here we're both Puerto Ricans.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that Puerto Ricans do struggle with. It is part of our like culture and how we got here. So, and these are just kind of like thought processes of how I assume other Puerto Ricans may feel, especially like millennial Puerto Ricans. Is like our parents came from the island, which is a U.S. territory. So we have cultures from the American kind of culture, and then we have our Puerto Rican culture. And then when we migrated here, a lot of Puerto Ricans either moved to like New York City, right? And then their kids grew up here, which is us. So in order to kind of assimilate with the American culture, we kind of lost a lot of the Latino culture.
Yeah.
But not really, because our parents would probably speak to us in Spanish at home. And then you would hear salsa music, you would still eat the food. Like, we still have that, but to assimilate to the other people around us, language was a big part of that. So like you, I mean, I think maybe I know or understand a little bit more Spanish than
Way more
than you do.
A little more.
Because my parents speak to me in Spanish, but I'm not fluent in the language. So there is a part of me that even with Latino cultures, like when I step into a room with Dominicans, I am very self-conscious of language. And when somebody starts speaking Spanish, that shit makes me nervous because I'm like, I'm white, but then they know oh, you're not white. So then you're Latino? Oh, you speak Spanish? Okay, speak Spanish. And then I'm like, I'm not Latino either because I can't fucking speak Spanish. Like, not as fluent as you can. I can understand what you say. So then it's like, whichever room I go into, I don't feel completely a part of.
Yeah, it's like you're
crazy.
constantly having to adjust and like second guess yourself.
It's crazy. Like, I'm constantly second guessing myself when I'm in the room.
You know, you guys just kind of talking about that. It's like, why isn't that a thing for me in that sense? So I was like kind of backtracking because so when I was younger, I always had a fro or braids, right? So, and everyone assumed I was black. I never had any issue with that. And grew up in Washington Heights where it was full of Hispanics and Dominicans specifically. But then I was like, and then, moved to Jersey, then kind of the environment changed. And it was like, that was the first time ever I was around a community that didn't speak Spanish predominantly. And that was weird. But I was thinking about it, like, so my mom had, I don't know if you guys have this similar memory of, like, the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? That my mom had this full collection, right? That she bought it from my gym teacher in Washington Heights. And we had these books, and they were to me, they were so cool looking because they had pictures and everything. They were color that I would literally go through these books. And one of the things that I would do is like, oh, I'm Dominican, and I would learn about Dominican history, culture, all that stuff through this resource. And like for me, the number one is like, I look the way I look, right? And my features have always been kind of a point of attention. My lips, it's like, oh, giant lips, oh, my hair, so on and so forth. So it's like, it's not something that I could deny in that sense, but I always had these experiences when I would go to DR where I would experience racism over there because there'd be this high racism towards Haitians, right? And that, identifying and experiencing that, my aunt was my aunt, right? And by the way, that's another aspect. My family from my mother's side, they all looked Asian. So my aunt, who looks like an Asian lady, screaming out about these Haitians and so on and so forth, experienced this racism. And it's like, I look like more like them than I do like you. Like, so what does this mean about like how you feel about me?
Oh, you're the good one. And it's like, what the fuck does that mean?
and then also the rejection of like Dominicans. All Dominicans are always like, oh no, we're not black, and it's like, yes, we are, bro. Like that's where the history comes from. So like what I was saying about the encyclopedia is like learning about like, oh, how did we get to be who we are? And it's like, oh, African slaves brought to Dominican Republic. So it's a combination of African slaves, Europeans, and natives, right? That were, to me, when I was little, I would say, I'm just a mutt. Like, I'm a mutt and I'm a bit of everything. And then in my family, like I said, we have Chinese. So it's like, I'm a hardcore mutt. So I feel like I belong everywhere in that sense. I don't belong everywhere from the way I look, right? But I belong everywhere from my heritage. So learning that at an early age, learning kind of that history and so on and so forth. And like my mom also I would ask my mom about our lineage, right? My mom had a great grandmother who came from Spain. And then from her father's side, it was like very indigenous. Like my great grandfather was a shaman, in DR, and they would call him to come and figure out how to get the farmland to grow and everything. And he would do these rituals, which were, when you trace them back, by the way, they're all scientifically based. So he'll take this tree, burn this tree, and then whatever over the field. And really what it would do, it would adjust the nature of the ground that's been being over-farmed. So it's like, that's like the history. So me learning this at a young age really added to that whole oneness thing that I have of like, I'm citizen of the world and super, super, what's it called?
Woo-woo.
Yeah. But it's from an identity of that, of like, yeah, I'm a little bit of that, I'm a little bit of that, I'm a little bit of that. And so therefore I can't deny any of it. So I think that's super interesting because like my identity was based off of that. I'm not like everyone else. I'm not just white. I'm not just black. I'm not just Hispanic, whatever. I'm a little bit of all of it. So I just need to find how I identify, oh, this part of me identifies here and this part identifies there.
Yeah. I think we forget that we're all multifaceted human beings and we're not just one thing, even though we latch onto it for like identity purpose and like that kind of like herd mentality. Sometimes you just don't want to feel alone, especially when you're a kid. You want to feel like you belong to a group and that there's somebody who understands you, kind of thing. So it takes a lot of time it's cool that you learned that at a young age, because not many people do. I think more people need to dive a little bit deeper into who they are and to where they come from, because you'll realize that you're made up of a lot more than just one thing, what you think you are. And I think it can really open your eyes up to personal growth.
But on that note, I feel like that is identified in like all of our stories, right? There's all different experiences and perspectives, and like Moses is white passing, right? You're colored, have tattoos, and you have this like white kid persona idea of your identity because it's how you grew up, right? And then with me, the mutt idea, right? So it's like it doesn't matter like the identity that you're having trouble with or you're recognizing yourself as. The fact of the matter is that we're all in this human experience, and we're all in that sense going uphill in one way or another.
I think also too it's being aware of how your perception of self determines your behavior and performance in certain arenas. Because like as I'm hearing everybody's story, like I know Jay, like he has this like white culture in there, but like recently I watched Jay, like I feel like you can tell a lot by their social media and what they like to post, because it's like, here's an expression of myself, like one side that I want you to know about me. And Jay has been learning about like Puerto Rican culture and African culture.
Yeah, I've always known about it. Just didn't talk about it because like, who the fuck am I going to talk about it with?
But that's the thing, the perception that's given off.
Yeah.
Right. So like when I tell my story of being in a room with like African Americans, is like there's part of me that wants to express that I do have that part of me. Like I grew up playing basketball with African Americans.
down,
Like
motherfuckers.
like I'm down, right? But then I walk into a room of Latinos and I'm like, I know how to dance better than all of you motherfuckers, right? So, you know, and then I work into a white room and I'm like, I can speak just as well as you can, and I can code switch and I can do all of these different things. So it's just like being aware that the tribalism does exist. And
It's human nature.
It is human nature. It does exist, but then it's like, how do you find a way to adapt to that environment and then open the perspectives of the individuals in that group?
Yeah.
Because that's what I try to find myself doing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, once I've kind of connected with a certain group of people, I'm like, okay, how do I open this up to everybody else?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The older I get, the more I'm like, oh, I'm more like a diplomat.
Yeah.
You know,
that's,
I'm like,
that's a good analogy.
I'm like, I have friends, you know, I love rock music. I love anime. I love skateboarding. I love all these other things that it goes to a branch of different kinds of people. And I'm still able to be myself, but I have all these different interests that wouldn't be deemed, oh, you're a Spanish kid. Oh, you come from so-and-so kind of thing. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think more kids need to embrace that. Mm-hmm. That's why I love seeing like kids now. Like I love seeing brown kids skateboard, and I love seeing brown kids be into anime. Because like you guys have no idea how this is going to benefit you in your life, kind of thing. Because you have all these, you don't see it as just, oh, this is a white kid thing. Oh, this is an Asian kid thing. Oh, this is a so and so thing. It's just what you like.
Well, Gen Z is like a lot more like
that. And that's one thing I love about the newer generations and stuff like that, that they might complain and bitch. I'm like, shut up, because that's the boomer in me. But I love the fact that they're a lot more just like, we like what we like. You know, I listened to this comedian the other day who was like, you know, boomers were always like, you can be whatever, you know, our parents were always like, you can be whatever you want. And it's like, I'm going to be a lady. And they're like, whoa. He's like,
I'll call your bluff.
Yeah. He's like, well, I call your bluff. How about that? You know, he's like, I'm going to get these size C's and be real sassy, motherfuckers. How about that? You know, and it's just, I love that about the younger generation. Do I think they're a little bit soft in their emotions, how they feel like everything needs to be validated?
Boomers said the same shit about us, though.
No, it just goes. It's just the age. You know, we're gonna think that, you know, today's music is a lot shorter than our generation of music and stuff like that. It's just how it goes.
That's kind of true.
But no, but it's
Gen
all,
X says it about us, and it just goes round and round.
It's cyclical. It's just always gonna happen, kind of thing. But I will say the one thing that always, I think we all are entitled to our emotions, and we're all entitled to feel a certain way, but that doesn't
mean that is true.
Yes, and it doesn't mean that it's goes general across the board kind of thing. You know, if I say a joke and defend you for a certain thing that went on in your life, it's not a reflection of me. It's a reflection of the experience that you went through and why it offended you, and you're entitled to be offended by it. But at the same time, it's not my fault that you're offended by it. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think with this generation, they have a hard time deciphering the two. And just people in general, because it's not just that generation. It's just, I think people in general with social media and all that stuff.
It's a root, like a personal development thing. It's like recognizing that this is a trigger within yourself, and it's an opportunity for your growth to happen, as opposed to that the environment needs to change so that you don't have this trigger, you know, agitated.
Yeah, because life is hard.
Yeah. So, like, you know, the key concept today is like personal development. I think recognizing that our personal limitations of our identities and everything that we put into what our identity is, and when something challenges our identity, we get triggered. We can look at those as opportunities for growth. And looking for looking at our lives in that manner, looking for the opportunities of growth. When I get triggered, this is an opportunity for growth. Like, that is how you bring yourself up to break outside of the limitations that have been placed on you and you have placed on yourself.
No, I think that's really true. And I'll just say one last thing. You ever notice that, like, you ever go back when you're taking a shower that you think about like a past argument, you're like, well, I should have said this and I should have said that. I should have said that. I think we also need to look back at times where we were a little bit rough and you're like, ooh, I shouldn't have said that. I should have handled it this way. Like, you have to reflect on both things. And I think we can't just focus on how can we be more assertive. It's like you got to learn how to pull back sometimes too, and to be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoe. And that only comes with time and experience and really looking into yourself, kind of thing. Which I learned a lot from you guys, which I don't like to admit.
Wait, so how'd you learn those things? 'Cause we didn't really have these conversations. Like, we had some conversations, but I feel like when it comes to Jay, it was more like...
It's more
like
so
in
watching
passing.
you guys. Yeah. It's more so just like watching you guys and like watching like how you guys developed. More so with you because you're my brother. And watching, you know, the young kid that I grew up with and to become the man that you are now. And it's like there's certain times I'm like, oh, Mose has that attitude. I'm like, I can see the little kid in him still. You know what I mean? But then there's other times I'm like, I'm so proud of this fucking guy because he's so fucking brave and he's the complete opposite of what he was scared of as a kid. And that makes me so fucking happy sometimes. So I take, like how you said, like how you observe Rances and Paolo, sometimes I observe you guys. And when I see that kind of stuff, it makes me think about like, how do I incorporate that into my life? And how do I make the changes that I need to make the change? Because as an only child, I could sometimes it's real easy to only think about how I feel and it doesn't matter how anybody else feels because how I feel is law and I'm just going to go about how I do things because that's just what it is. And being in a long-term relationship now, that it don't work like that. It doesn't work like that at all. And thanks to you guys and it's really helped me to check myself sometimes, especially with like, and it sounds silly because it wasn't even emotional stuff, but it's like with the workouts and stuff like that. The ones that like you're just like, you work out till failure and you're going to fail and you have to be okay with failing. That really changed my perspective on certain things. Just like, it's okay to fuck up. You're going to fuck up. That's life. You fuck up. Now, how do you go about it? And that was you guys. So
yeah, I actually remember one of those workouts.
I had a fucking temper tantrum.
Yeah,
I think about that. I think about that all the time.
Tell the story.
Yeah. I don't remember like what exactly you were doing. I just know it was one like was it the Skull Crusher, I think?
No, it was the one of the Captain America conditioning workouts, which is the swing, the thrusters, burpees, high knees.
Yes.
And it's AMRAP. So it's how many sets can you do in whatever, I think it was like 8 minutes or 9 minutes or something like that.
And yeah, I just remember just going into it, not wanting to fucking do it, having a terrible fucking day, just not being in the mood to do it and not being in the mood to fail and not being in the mood for somebody to be like, you gotta do it kind of thing. So it was one of those things that I remember just being like fucking fed up and just being and catching an attitude with you guys, which I never really do when it comes to like working out and stuff like that. And I saw the little kid, like looking back on it, I saw the little kid in me. I saw the defensive little kid that growing up, which we'll talk about later, was something that was kind of passed down to me where it was just like, this is law, you fucking do it, and this is how it is kind of thing. And it's like, and how you respond to that is by barking back. You stand your ground. Nobody's crossing this line. And I don't care what you say. I'm right, even though I'm wrong. And it was just one of those things, like if you bark loud enough, they'll leave you alone. And with you guys, that doesn't work. You're like, okay, you're upset. Keep going. And it taught me a real valuable lesson later on. I didn't see it so much there, but like that was how many years ago now?
I would say about
2 or 3.
About 3 years.
About 3 years ago. It still sticks to me. I think about that all the time. And I think about it a lot when I'm boxing and stuff like that. I'm super fucking tired. And like, I could just give up. But giving up means I'm just going to get punched a lot. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what you do right now. But if you give up, you're gonna take a bigger beating than if you just keep moving. And just keep moving. And I learned that from you guys.
I think part of that was like Rances, Jay and I were doing the workout together, and I was used to that workout.
Yeah.
So I was in pretty good shape at that time.
Yeah.
That was prior to COVID.
Yeah.
So we were doing it, and I was going hard, and Jay was like trying to keep up in that beginning phase, and then you ended up throwing up.
Yeah.
You went to the bathroom and threw up, and then that's when you got upset, and then you threw like a fit or a tantrum, like one of those sarcastic tantrums.
Yeah,
that you throw.
my tantrums aren't like, ah! It's more I become
like-
a moody teenager.
Yeah, you become a moody, sarcastic teenager.
Yeah.
And that's what really kind of triggered. And I remember that because I was like, damn, yo. That was like the first time I really saw you. I mean, I saw you break a couple times when
Yeah.
I was younger, but like as an adult.
Yeah.
Was it this day?
No.
it wasn't that.
No, Jay, that was after. Jay had gotten past it.
Yeah.
At that
But it was
point.
around this time?
It was around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were just flying, and then that was the first time I kind of saw you break as an adult.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because you know what it is too? It's you saw me go through my real break when I was in my early 20s, and then after that I was like, I'm never gonna break ever again. I kind of pulled the Rances like I'm never gonna cry. But my heart's not made of steel.
Well, I made Rances feel uncomfortable the other day.
Yeah.
I made him
Good.
feel real uncomfortable the
Oh,
other day.
please tell me.
Like he was about to laugh. 'Cause
Yeah.
he
I know.
felt
I was like this.
What
I had
did
a-
you do?
You wanna go ahead? I mean,
So we in the podcast with Paola, it was funny because the next day I was editing and I was like, "Yo, Moses shared in that podcast how generally he needs the time and space to then reflect on how something is triggering. So if something's pissing him off, he tends to like kind of shut down, and then like a few days later, a week later, then he'll address it. So this is the first time in any of our that I can remember any of our conversations where I was speaking. He had just presented something, and I was speaking about it, and he said, "I'm getting very upset right now because you're dismissing everything that I just worked on and not acknowledging it." And that response of him like recognizing that he was getting upset, addressing it, and speaking to it, I was like, and my face started going into that smile. I was like, "Oh shit, Mo, don't get upset." I might start laughing, but it was because like it was completely like I was not it was like completely hit blind spot. Like
Yeah.
I was not expecting it. And I was like, "Oh shit!" And this is because I just want to say this. Generally, in our interactions, I usually take on the load of recognizing his emotional level when he doesn't explain it to me. So then, because I'm doing that, I'm like, "Oh, okay, like I'm pushing him too much. Let me back." It's not necessarily because he's saying it to me, but in this case, he said it before I could even pick it up, and that was just like what?
so the physiology, I've become really good on understanding my physiology behind anger.
Okay.
You ever see like the movies where somebody gets angry and the whole thing starts shaking?
Yeah.
Like, and it kind of like glimps in and out. It's almost like a glitch in a computer. That's what happens to me. And it happened that one time that I blew up on you when we were on Zoom, and I like just like lost my shit.
Oh yeah,
and
something like you like threw your notebook. And I was
threw-
like, it's not effective when you do it on Zoom, but I mean, it is effective, but it's
I was
also
just
very
pissed,
funny. Yeah.
I was just like pissed. So I was getting close to that point again, and I was like, oh shit, here it is. Like I recognized it, and that's when I said it. I was like, oh, I'm about to lose my shit. I'm gonna say something before I actually do. And that's really what it is. And I think, I mean, going back to Jay's point, I think you go back to that story a lot because it's the understanding of the emotional, the physiology that actually happens. And I think that's what I've been really good at becoming aware of, is like my own physiology in the moment that I'm speaking something. So like when I get nervous, I already know what my heart rate does, my skin does, like all of those things, to be able to then say, okay, how am I perceiving this? Why is it making me feel this way? Do I say something? What do I do? So in that moment, I felt that physiology, and I was like, yo, you're pissing me off, bro.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're completely dismissing everything that I've done.
I think it's also, I mean, I could see why he smiles too, because he's expressing himself. So it's a beautiful thing. It's like, oh my God, yeah, get mad right now, but don't get mad. But I appreciate you letting me know that I pissed you off, kind of thing. No, I think that's fucking really cool. And it's something that I am still, I mean, we're always working on it. It is something that I've been trying to consciously think about. And it's like, don't be so reactionary. Just assert why you're feeling the certain way that you are, but don't bark off of it, kind of thing. And just like, listen, like how you said, like I want to strive more for being like, you're making me upset. And I want to let you know why you're making me upset, instead of just fucking immediately just barking. And then afterwards, like, I did that because I was upset because you did this and did that, and it made me feel like this. So it's like more explaining yourself before going there,
But
kind of thing.
to get to that point,
Do I
you
need to
have
get
to
to
learn.
ketosis?
You have to do the reaction. You have to what?
I said, do I have to get to ketosis?
No, no. To get to that point, you have to learn the reaction first.
Yeah.
It's not something that like I feel that you're able to just like, you know what, I need to respond better. It's more like, no, I react like, for example, Rances' story,
Yeah.
right, of the butcher block, and then going back to that space and then understanding his emotions and then saying like, oh no, I have an opportunity to change my reaction. The reaction had to happen first in order for him to learn the new response.
Yeah.
So I just had a coaching session this morning, and that was kind of the topic of conversation that we were having, in the sense of how do we first become aware, right? In order to change anything, we first need to become aware of it, right? And in the session, we were talking about like the opportunities to become aware. And there's a judgment that comes like, I should be aware of this already, right? But recognizing that sometimes we're not, we're just on autopilot. So setting up systems to help our awareness.
Real quick.
I feel like Jay's about to say something stupid.
No, it's just going back to the Rances a robot thing. When you start using certain terminology,
Systems.
it makes me giggle because I'm like, oh, he's talking computer talk again.
But there is a value to that.
It makes so much sense. It's just that going back from like, he's being vulnerable, and then it makes me giggle. I'm like, oh, I still have stuff to work on.
There is something that does trigger me about the way that you do speak about it. 'Cause, like, I understand that it's coming from a thing. And it's like, no, you put these protocols in place, very Huberman-like. You put these protocols in place, AKA systems, to be able to build this tool. And he's right. Like, it is that. It just sounds so disconnected
And cold.
that it almost makes it seem like
Rances is a robot?
Rances is a robot. Yeah.
I mean, I get it, and I think that the problem of why it's so hard for many people to do is because it's so hard to disconnect from that experience.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like what I do is I disconnect from the experience and examine it on that robotic format, which then allows me to really identify, break it down. But if you're so sucked into it, like, this is my experience, these are my emotions, and all of this is truth and real, then I can see how it can be very hard for you to create distance and space in order to examine yourself in that manner. And so, like, I understand the disconnect. I understand the challenge, like, when I'm speaking, and it's something that's been brought up in the past. But I think that is the root challenge, the root problem of understanding how to do it. The how to do it is all about creating that space. So I went through this emotional experience. Okay, that was you inside the ship. Now you're going to be on land looking at the ship from a distance, and you examine it. That is how you change, because now you examine it from a distance, you debrief, and you go back on the ship, go through the same route, and now you have a plan on how to handle the situation. But it requires that distance from the ship. It requires that space to think of yourself as something that you can influence. And if you think of yourself as something that's just reactionary, reactive to whatever's happening to you, then you're powerless. Because there's nothing that you can put in place to train yourself to behave this way. So I get it. And that sounds like a you problem. So anyways, what I was saying about my client is the idea of recognizing that those points of awareness can come from anything around you. So how do you set up systems in place to become aware? Is like maybe it's someone close to you that says, hey, you're doing that thing, and you're not aware because you're in it. And by them saying that, and you drilling in your head that they're going to tell me this, I'm not going to respond. You train yourself to not respond in reactionary way, but it's like, oh, thank you. I'm doing that thing. Now you start to become aware, and that space gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you start recognizing, I'm about to have that reaction. And then that's where you get to the point where you don't, after the fact, apologize and have to say, but it's like in the moment that is coming up, it's like, Moses, I'm getting very upset right now, and this is why. So it's like, oh shit, like that's clear.
I find it easier to do that when I am consistently working out, meaning consistently doing something very uncomfortable.
I agree with that, because ever since I started picking up like boxing and just like being consistent, like, okay, I'm going to do this 6 days a week, it's changed my outlook on things completely.
Like, yeah, your baseline for uncomfortable emotions goes up for those things. And I think that's very important. So when sometimes I'm talking to clients that I know do not have any of that experience, for me to say, hey, put this protocol in place or put this system in place, is like, it's a waste of time. Like, you need to get your ass kicked. So one of the things that my girl and I were talking about, because we were talking about this morning and last night, holding the line in our relationship. Like, who's holding the line for making sure that we stick to our habits and commit to what we say we're going to do? And I was like, we need to do uncomfortable things in certain categories of our lives. So it's like physically, like we should write down starting the day, how are we going to get physically uncomfortable? Mentally or emotionally? How do we get uncomfortable in that situation? Nutritionally, how do you get uncomfortable in that situation? Go ahead, make your joke.
It was a pegging joke. Never mind.
Dismantle.
Sounds like butt stuff. That makes everybody uncomfortable.
So we're going to close out this episode now. So let's do this. I want to do something a little bit different. When it comes to personal development, what do you think is the most important thing for each of you? Ooh. One thing in one sentence.
You go first. Let that compute.
One thing, but one sentence.
One thing in one sentence.
Okay.
That somebody can just literally take, and if they want to start applying, they could do it right now.
Okay. To me, it would be awareness of what triggers you and using that awareness to create action plans.
That's good. I'm going to say accountability. I think we, as a human race, we all need to be a little bit more accountable for our reactions and our actions and our feelings. And you need to notice that it's not always somebody else's fault. Sometimes it lies within you, and you need to, and that ties into awareness. And that's more than one sentence, but I don't care because I run on my own rules.
How about you, Mo?
I think for me, it's understanding your emotions, aka physiology. And the only way to do that is to consciously pick discomfort every single day.
Guys, thank you so much for watching Mindset U once again. As we always say, like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube at Vita Project, follow us on Spotify at Mindset U. Just follow us everywhere. Follow us in the streets. Walk down the street with me. Let me know how you feel.
Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find us
Yeah.
as Mindset U.
Yeah, and if YouTube, it's Vita Project. It's a little different. We're a little backwards. We're a backward group, all right?
Worst case scenario, if you don't know, just vitaproject.com.
Yeah.
You can find everything there.
Or just ask one of us. It's great. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I gotta go pee. Love you guys.